Hello, my name is Cory, and for my lightning talk, I looked at the Virginia opossum's nocturnal behavior in rural and urban environments. My research question was, do urban environments significantly affect the Virginia opossum's nocturnal behaviors? I chose this species because they are opportunistic feeders, and studies have shown that they actually live in closer proximity to humans because of that, because they can use our trash and things like that for food, and have actually been shown to have a larger body size when living closer to humans. Also, because they are nocturnal, if there is any noticeable change in their behavior, I might be able to see if that was because of the light pollution or noise pollution in a city slash urban environment, which leads to my hypothesis, which is that urban environments will affect the time at which the opossums are most commonly observed, probably leaning towards more observations being made during the daytime in urban environments. So for my methods, I used iNaturalist data from 2016 up until now, only research grade observations, and obviously they must include the time because that's important. I categorized each observation as urban or rural by looking at where they are, and I defined the daytime as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and obviously nighttime 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. For my analysis, I used Excel to make some bar charts, and I used a chi-square test for independence, which I calculated on my graphing calculator. My first figure is a bar chart that has all observations made, regardless of urban or rural environments. On the y-axis, you can see the number of observations, and on the x-axis, it shows the hour of the day and 24-hour time. There aren't any huge trends noticeable from this graph. There is that the most common time to make observations was 1 p.m., which is during the day. But there were also a lot of observations made between midnight and 6 a.m., which is a time that we are not especially active, but there still were a lot of opossum observations. But more importantly, I wanted to see if there was a noticeable trend between the urban and the rural observations. So on the left, I have only the urban observations, and on the right, only the rural. In the urban, you can see that there is still large peaks during the day at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. And in the rural environments, there's less of a noticeable trend. The observations were more spread evenly throughout the day. Any significance, I use a chi-square test for independence. This will tell me if is any sort of relationship between the environment where the observation was made and the time of day that the observation was made at. So the table shows the counts for each of these categorical variables, and the numbers in the parentheses are just the expected counts, which are needed to do the analysis. It came out with a chi-square test statistic of 0.5, which for degrees of freedom of 2 gives a p-value of 0.47. So back to the significance. Does this show that observation is independent of location? It does, because that p-value is not significant. And back to the hypothesis, that means that there wasn't a significant difference in the amount of observations made at day or night in the urban environments relative to the rural environments that were less impacted by human behavior. Why might this be? Even though I'm trying to look at the opossum behavior patterns, it's also looking at human behavior patterns because we're obviously not up and making observations in the middle of the night. So there might be a slight bias towards daytime observations there. Also, a study has shown that coyotes actually are more active during the night to avoid humans, and we might be seeing the same thing with opossums, where in an urban environment they might actually be more active during the night to avoid street traffic and uh, human interference, because we do view them as pests. And also, the greater Burlington area is maybe not the most ideal representation of an urban and a rural environment division. I might do as other tests have done if I were to do this again, and identify one county that is highly urban and one county that is highly rural, and use just the data from those two counties. That is all I have. Thank you for listening.